こんにちは。
Hello,
I'm Dalton, ダルです。
I'm Aoi, Aoi です。こちらはバイリンガル形式で会話をお届けいたします。
And today we're going to be talking about pronunciation. Well, first of all, what does pronunciation mean in Japanese?
発音ですね。
Yes. So there's a lot of different things we could talk about with pronunciation, but I guess for starters, maybe we can just say a little bit about if we think pronunciation is important or not for learning a language, because I know lots of people that speak English as a second language that don't have native pronunciation, and I'm sure you know lots of people that have very strong accents in Japanese. So
そうだね、なんか日本語のアクセントも未だにここ出身とかでさ全然迷っちゃうじゃん。なんか標準語にたどり着くまでに。だから私は東北出身なんだけど、コーヒーの発音が違うの、他の人と。
Really?
っていうのを指摘されたんだよね、周りの人から。
Okay.
なんて言ってみて。
コーヒーじゃない。
まっすぐでしょ。
No, it drops at the very end. It's なかなか。So it goes コーヒー。The last part goes down.
ああ、そうだ、コーヒーって言ってたのね、多分。コーヒー忘れたんだけど、意識しすぎてちょっと今ダメだけど、学ぶ第二言語もそうだけど、第一言語もたまにね、悩むぐらいもう本当に発音って難しいじゃん。
Yeah, there's one distinction we should probably make is between pronunciation and intonation.
ああ、それだね。
They're a little bit different. So pronunciation would be 発音。Intonation. Luckily in Japanese it's just intonation.
Intonation. ポイントだよね。どこに
The accent, yeah, where the accent's at. So, yeah, do you think it's important for people to learn about pronunciation and intonation when they study Japanese?
Not really.
Why do you think that?
Because, 通じたらいいと思ってる。なんかその人のゴールによるけど、完璧なネイティブに近くなりたかったらどうぞだけど、私はその通じてて、何もその相手に失礼な態度をしてなければ、そんなに追わなくていいと思う。なんかそんなに頑張りすぎなくていいと思う。なんかストレスになるんだよね。
You think so?
いや、なんかもうやっぱりいくら頑張ってもネイティブにはなれないっていうのはもうついてくるじゃん。
I suppose, yeah.
だからもうプロナンセーションなんかこれ日本語の最初の言語を持ってるといくら英語を頑張ってもちょっとどこかで出ちゃうんだよね、日本人アクセントは。私はちょっとじゃなくてまだ全然出まくってる人だけどなんかついてくるものだと思うし、それは別に恥ずかしくだってないし、仕方ないことだし、だからそんな絶対に完璧じゃなかったら恥ずかしいよとかは全く私は思わないタイプ。どう思ってる？
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think everybody's goals are going to be different. And if your goal is just to be able to communicate and say, like convey certain information, then yeah, it really, as long as people can understand you and you can understand them, that's all that's important.
まあ、アナウンサーとかになったら別だけどね。
Right.
目指すのが。
And that said, like, there's, obviously everybody's situation is different, but I don't know, I've always just found it so interesting to me to learn about how and why different languages work different ways and how different sounds are made, that it kind of surprises me when people aren't interested in that. And they're just like, oh, it's fine, I'll just, say this in this accent. But maybe we just recorded an episode about music. Maybe it's because we're both kind of sensitive to sound and we notice it more than others, but I don't know.
そうだね.
Right. So I don't know if studying pronunciation is necessary, but I do think that if you, how do I say this? It does not take a ton of extra work to learn some of the basics of the language you're studying that will make your Japanese or your English much, much better. For example, even if you don't study a ton of Japanese phonetics and pronunciation, even just learning about heibangata words will completely change how natural you sound. For example, the common American accent in Japanese is to drop everything. Instead of Osaka, it's Osaka, right?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Konnichiwa.
Right. Yeah. Americans have a hard time with words going up. So 大学 or anything like that will drop just like 音楽, right?
Yeah.
大学
Yeah.
大学 学生
Yeah.
right? Americans drop everything. Even just learning how to fix that one small thing makes you sound a lot more natural.
そうだね。
And so I would encourage people to, you don't need to force yourself to be perfect, but I also don't think you should just ignore it completely because there's some easy things you can learn that'll help you a lot to sound more natural and make it a lot easier to communicate with people.
そうかもね。あとなんか一手間が減るよね。そのコミュニケーションで。お坂って時、大阪って言われる、その直されるじゃないけど、確認される作業が減るよね。
And again, everyone's goals are different, but one of my goals was to be able to communicate with people naturally. And of course, I'm never going to be seen as a Japanese person. People look at my face and my body and they know I'm not Japanese. But if I have a really strong American accent, then there's a certain like kyori, it's a distance, right? It's like, I can't talk normally to him, right? Whereas if I have really good pronunciation and rhythm and intonation, all of a sudden they feel like they're talking to another Japanese person and they can talk normally and comfortably and use slang.
Comfortably,
right? So that's one of the benefits I think of studying pronunciation is it makes other people more like relaxed and comfortable talking to you because they know that you know what they are talking about.
そうだね。なんか、さっき私あんなこと言ってたけど、でも思い返してみたら、この発音のせいで、どれくらいなんか、すごく、本当に行きたい会話のところまで、遠回りすることになっちゃったかっていうのが思い出す。この話をしたいのに、私の発音のせいで、その話までたどり着くのが、時間がかかっちゃったりしたの。なんかそれを理解されなかったから、最初に。
Oh, I see.
そう。
Is it a pronunciation thing or is that like a grammar and vocab thing?
日焼けめっちゃしたねって言いたかったんだよね、その時。だから、you got sunburn って言ったの。
Yeah.
その時は。今は多分合ってる。伝わる。けど、その時なぜか伝わらなくて、sunburn? なんかわかんない。
Yeah.
なんか違う感じで言っちゃったんだよね。
Right.
発音かイントネーションかわからないけど。それで、何のことってなってわからなくて、じゃあちょっとこれ Google でタイプしてみてとかなったりして、最初の軽いスモールトークをしたかったのに、時間がかかって、なんか、すごい気を使われたのが、思い出にあって、苦かった、すごくそれは。
Yeah, I've had similar experiences where like I use the wrong accent pattern for something. Like just one example is like the difference between ame. Right? Like there's a lot of different words like that where I try to say something and I don't know what the other one is and people don't understand me and then I have to like that's one of the ways where intonation has really helped me is starting to be able to be understood the first time I say something rather than like having to go back and forth and correct it and look at a dictionary and everything.
なんか英語もそうだけど日本語ってすごくそういうの多いよね。箸もそうだし、カエルもそうだし。
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And even if it's not one of the words where you have both, because Japanese has so few sounds, there are like, if you mess up the accent pattern, people won't really know what you're trying to say because it'll sound kind of like a different grammar point or kind of like a different word. And so it'll just kind of sound like a jumbled mess until you fix the accent pattern. That said, that's not always the case. So,
どうやって直してる?
Me? How do I fix
your
like pronunciation? So again, pronunciation is different from intonation. The way I fix my intonation is by looking up in a dictionary what the accent pattern of a word is. And I think maybe it'd be fun sometime to talk about what the accent patterns in Japanese are because I always thought they were super fascinating.
やりたい、やろう。
But yeah, that one's just, there's some rules you can learn, but some of it is just like, you just have to hear the word and copy the other people saying the word or just look it up.
あと自分の声録音したり?
Yeah.
Okay.
For pronunciation, making the actual sounds, that was honestly a lot of like trial and error.
うん。
I took an actual Japanese phonetics class where they just like taught you how to move your lips and how to move your tongue and how to move your throat differently to sound a little bit more Japanese, how to breathe differently the way a Japanese person does, how to like move your teeth differently the way a Japanese person does, so that you have a different, it's called vocal placement. So like the way you move the muscles in your face.
vocal vocal なんて言った
Vocal placement. Vocal placement.
vocal placement.
Vocal means voice.
Vocal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vocal placement.
Placement.
So yeah, I learned pronunciation by lots of study and lots of practice, and it's something I'm still working on. Like you hear me sometimes like trying to fix myself when I feel like my sound is a little bit loose on something.
やってるよね、自分自身で。
Yeah, which is maybe a bad habit, but it's, I like learning about it all the time. So what about you? How have you learned pronunciation for English? Or how do you fix your pronunciation?
私は結構間違ってても、間違ってるのはわからない状態で使ってるのがもうほぼだから、他の人が直してくれるのを素直に勉強して直すぐらいかな。なんか自分でやるのはすごく、時間がかかってて、しかも自分が間違ってるのは全然わからない。なんか、そうやって言ってると思ってた。でもそうじゃなかったんだっていうのが多いから、そうだね。本当に自分の声を録音するとき以外は、聞いてもらうっていうか喋ってるのを、なんかこうやって言った方がいいって言われたやつを直すくらいかな。
Yeah. So at the end of the day, like one of the biggest pieces of advice we can give is just actually talk to people.
いや、本当にノートに書いてもあんまり。
Right. Like actually talk, actually record yourself, actually do shadowing, find people that are willing to correct you.
Oh, wait.
What?
I found it. 私の上、オーディオブック。
Okay.
さっきもやってたんだけど、よく人気の本とかは YouTube で、オーディオブックが読んでくれるバージョンのやつがあるから、その本を、現物を手にして、その自分で目で読まないで、その人の声を聞きながらその本を読み進めていく。そしたら、こういう時こうやって言うんだとかっていうので、自分だったら頭の中で読む時になんか We are って言っちゃったり、We will って言っちゃったりしてるけど、このネイティブは We're gonna とか言ってるじゃんって思ったら、なんかすごく勉強になるから、よかったかもこの方法と思って最近ずっと継続してるんだけど。
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things I used to do when I was first like studying Japanese and living in Japan was I would listen to this podcast, Hikibiki, and I would just pick one episode and just listen to it over and over and over and over and over again. And like, for example, when I was taking the train ride or the bus to work, I would listen to this episode. And anytime there was a word I didn't understand, I would look it up. Or not every time, but often. And then after I listened to that episode like 5 or 6 times, and I looked up a couple of words once in a while, I had started to like learn all this new vocab. I heard it used by a native person in context. And the really cool part is I started to like remember all of the phrases they used and the reactions that they would use. So that I had like this library of like grammar and pronunciation and stuff to use from, because it's a guy and a girl, right? So I could like hear the different pronunciation and voices and emotions and all kinds of stuff.
いや、なんかその同じものを何度も聞くって本当にいいよね。そのポッドキャストもそうだし、音楽もそうだけど、この間言ったパプリカもそうだけど、何回も聞いて、その誰かが作った作品を自分のものにしちゃう。なんか自分の頭に入れちゃったら、同じ言ってた言葉が、なんか魔法のように自分の口からも言えるようになってるよね。だから、それすっごく私も好き。その方法。
Yeah, listen to the same thing many, many, many times. Shadow it. Like look up words you don't know. Memorize like the phrases and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it
Aoi,
helps
これダルくんからもね、すごくね、 一個単語、シャワー浴びさせられてるの。
Which one?
浴びさせられたの。
What?
何か質問するときにダル君は絶対最初にこうやって答えるんだけど、It depends. ダル君は言うのね。
Yeah.
それはもう葵の自分の中で、なんか、他の、ダル君が関係ないところでね、なんか
Right.
英語の質問とか、英語のそういうのを見たときに、
Yeah.
It depends だねって思うようになって、
Yeah.
影響されてる。
Yeah.
これすごく便利じゃない？ It depends って。
Yeah.
その場合によるでしょ？
Right. Exactly.
まあ日本語でも使うけど、これ英語でさ、It depends を覚えられたらどれほど、回答に困らないかっていうのがね。なんか悩んでる時も、とりあえずそれ言っとけば、ってその後悩んでもいいし。
Right. Yeah. It depends is like my common way of trying to get people to stop thinking of things in black and white terms. Right.
グレーにするんだよね。
Right. Like a lot of people, when I was teaching in Japan, a lot of my students would say, like, in America, like, what do you eat for dinner? Which is like an impossible question to answer because there's so many different cultures and different families and different cities and different everything. Like just in this one city, there's like Indian families and Chinese families and Japanese families and African families and people of all different religions and everything. Like I literally can't give a reasonable answer to that question.
なんかでもその質問する理由もわかるし、その質問されて悩むのもどっちもわかる今。
Yeah.
気になるんだもん、だって。
Yeah, and of course I gave them like real answers and real examples of the diversity of it, but that's just like one example.
だね。
Yeah. So, yeah, basically I think pronunciation is fun and I think it's really helpful to help you connect with people and it's not this big scary thing that most people think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you have to learn how to use your face in a different way.
いや、そうだね、本当に。
Some people think like if you're not a baby anymore, then you can't learn how to sound close to a native, which is just not true. I know so many people who, as an adult, picked up a second language, whether it was English or Japanese or something
まあ
else.
耳がいいとかもあるけどね。あとは経験も
They
そ
just
うだし。
it wasn't on accident, it was because they chose to continue learning about it, right? They got a pronunciation coach or a teacher, or
Yeah.
they took a class on it, or they read books about it, or they watched YouTube videos
Yeah.
about it. If you don't take an active interest in it, it's not going to improve. But,
なんかその環境づくりでしょ？
right.
あとさっき私また言ったけど、音を取るのが上手だったと。
Yeah, but again, I'm saying that's something you can learn. It's a skill you can learn and develop and practice. Yeah. Do you disagree?
結構葵なんか、すごく何カ国も覚えてる人に共通してるのが、みんなすごく耳がいいんだなと思ってた。なんか、まあ、音楽もそうだけど、なんか聞いた人の言葉をすごくそのまま飲み込めて、で、そのまま自分の口から発せるのって、なんかその人の努力もあるけど、音を分ける力とか、その音をどうやって自分の口で作るかっていうのが、得意っていうのも影響してると思ったさ。
I think I agree, but I also think that the opposite is true. It's not that because their ears are good, they learned a lot of languages. I think it's because they learned a lot of languages, their ears are good. You know what I mean?
そっちもあるね。
Yeah. Could be both. Could be a mix. I'm sure everybody's different, but again, like it's all a skill. So if you want to learn different ways of pronouncing it, you have to learn how to listen. You got to learn how to move your face different.
そうだそうだ。
But I think we agree on both those points.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you for listening to us talk about pronunciation. How is pronunciation going for you in English or in Japanese? Do you have any questions? I've taught English and Aoi's done a lot of learning English and helping me with Japanese, so I think we can help with some questions if you have any.
はい、お願いします。
Awesome. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
さようなら。